Every now and again, I like to try something new, and no matter how much I plan ahead, things don't always go as expected. And this is one of those times, and it starts now. Welcome to Big Monster Brewing. I am Matt, and this is the Anvil Foundry edition. And in this episode, I am going to be making a rice lager three different ways. Well, three different, outcomes. It's all going to be brewed the same. We're going to do a couple different things on a couple of gallons. We'll get into that real quick, and I'll make more sense. But before we do, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, liking the video, and put any comments, questions, and whatnot below. Japanese rice lager. This is a style that I've always enjoyed when I could find it, but now even more so because it's popping up not only in a lot of Central Florida breweries, but a lot of breweries that I've been going to visit on these beer vacations that I've started taking within, probably been about the past year, maybe a little shy of that. So, I really like the flavor. I like the taste. I like the light crispness of it. There is a little bit of a body to it, little something different. Probably has to do with the rice. There's a lot about it that I like, so I wanted to try my hand at it. But I'll tell you, right off the bat, this particular video is going to show you just about everything not to do about it. Even though everything I've tried in this video, I studied, I researched, and planned out, and all of it made perfect sense until it all comes together. So let's get into all of that now. So the first thing to wrap my head around for this beer was how to incorporate the rice, and everything that I saw pretty much showed incorporating it into the mash as a cooked rice, as a cooked, I was gonna say final product. I'm not quite sure how to put that. Put it in to having been cooked to an extent, and that was probably the key. The most successful looking beers I saw, at least as far as their brew day went, let's say that, the most successful brew days that I saw, they seem to have just undercooked their rice. And that is probably big mistake number 2 that I made. Big mistake number 1 and 1.5 is probably the rice and how I handled it. I've seen a lot of talk about using jasmine rice, and I just opted for some normal medium grain white rice. Now, while that might not have been necessarily a bad decision, I decided to run it through the mill. I know I'm not cracking any grains open on this. I know it's not handling it the same way it would handle malts. What I was trying to do was break these grains apart to get more surface area for more conversion. I think the choice of the rice and treating it that way was probably big mistake number 1. Now, big mistake number 2 is how I kind of led into this part of the conversation, and that was preparing the rice. I should have cooked it on a stovetop to the point where I could pull it off right as it was just about cooked. I don't know if al dente is the right term for rice. I don't think it is. I'm not much of a chef or a foodie, but so there's still some kind of firmness, maybe even a little bit of hard texture to it, and let the mash take care of the rest. I didn't. I went the easy route. I cooked it in our rice cooker overnight, and that did anything but undercook it. It probably overcooked it. It was sticky, one giant bowl of cooked rice that we're going to see more of here shortly. Big mistake number 2. Now on to a few other prep work that I did here. That wasn't a mistake. I also did a big yeast starter because, like I said, I was going to make 3 gallons of this, and I also am going to make another lager. Every time I make one batch of lager, I go ahead and prepare to make 2 batches of lager because I can fit 2 fermenters in the refrigerator that I lager in. So might as well take the time or the opportunity to do 2 lagers. So here's some footage. I'm using Imperial Global L13, made a nice big starter for it, one of my favorite lager yeast. At least all that went right. And now on to brew day, and starting with potentially and probably mistake number 3, and that is putting 4.42 gallons of water in my 10.5 gallon Anvil Foundry. And the choice of using the 10.5 on this is probably the mistake. We're going to see why very shortly. I set the strike water temperature to 156 degrees Fahrenheit and add that basket and get the water recirculating. While that heats up, I'm going to get the rest of the grist together, and then I'm going to come back and fix another mistake that I just made in that segment that it's so minor compared to the rest, but This is just how this brew day is going, but let's get to the rest of the grist. I have some base malt to add along with this rice, and that is 3 pounds and 12 ounces of Pilsner malt. And then I have 1.25 pounds of flaked rice, which I'm glad I did substitute some of this rice for flaked rice, as we're going to talk about soon. This is basically what the recipe called for in the first place. All the rice in this was originally flaked rice. I just kind of cut it almost down the middle and did some white rice and then some flaked rice. And we're going to see how that turns out. We're going to see how it turns out in the process. We're also going to see how it turns out in flavor in the end. So that is the grist so far, because I've made another mistake, and we haven't even covered, I think, 2 mistakes I've made here yet. But I continue on, I forge on, I mill the Pilsner malt, the base malt, and then I mix that in with the flaked rice, double check my brewing sheet, and see that I wanted to mash in at 158. So that's an easy fix. That is the easiest fix of all the mistakes I made today. So I turn up the heat to 158 degrees Fahrenheit. And then further review of the sheet also shows me that I forgot to get 4 ounces of acidulated malt and 3 ounces of carapils into the grist. So I do that now. And now I have a complete grist, and we still have a mistake to cover. I think we're all caught up except for that one mistake about the Foundry, which is going to be a big one. So now the water's at the temperature, and I start to mash in, and I add the malts first, followed by the flake rice, and then that cooked rice. This rice is very cooked and very sticky, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of stirring, a lot of stabbing with that mash paddle to get this incorporated into something I'm comfortable with. But I do eventually get it there, and then I now can officially start the mash time. Now that the mash is underway, I can start getting those boil additions ready. I'm using 1 hop in this beer, and that's one that most brewers probably associate with Japanese rice lagers, and that's Sriracha Ace. I'm using them at the beginning and the end, starting with 0.21 ounces at 60 minutes, and then 1 full ounce at 1 minute. Along with that, I'll have my usual boil additions of yeast nutrients at 10 minutes, and Whirlfloc at 2 minutes. And here I promptly knock over the Whirlfloc just for good measure. So mash is going okay. I can see things aren't flowing great, but I am able to keep it going by mixing it up every 15 minutes and keeping it recirculating. Then after 50 minutes, I do my usual 168 degree 10-minute mash out to complete the entire mash. At this point, this is when things went downhill very quickly, and I don't have much footage, if any, to show you because I needed 8 hands to handle what happened next. Something about that 168, I think, maybe the whole process of mashing and just that rice in general, but at that 168 mash out point, that's when everything seized up in that grist. That rice became glue. And in this particular design for this Anvil Foundry, the false bottom, which I will take some shots of here to help explain, it does not take much to kind of lock this false bottom up. I've had a little bit of trouble with this with very protein heavy mashes, very wheat heavy mashes already. And this rice was no friend of this false bottom. I took the malt pipe out of the Foundry and not a drop was coming out. Nothing. I tried to scrape the bottom with a spoon from inside the mash tun. I could get nothing out. So what I had to end up doing, and this explanation is way shorter than the amount of time it took. I ran in my garage, got the basket and the ring from the 6.5 gallon Foundry, set that up, and just started hand scooping until I got just everything, liquid and grist, mash, whatever you want to call it, into that 6.5 gallon Foundry. Now, mind you, this is a 3.5. This is a 3 gallon batch, so the 6.5 gallon was more than enough to hold all of that. And the design of that basket is well more conducive to something like this very sticky rice. In obvious hindsight, no question, I should have done this in the 6.5 gallon Foundry. But I figured with the extra gallon I wanted to make and having a little more overhead for boil room, I have the 10.5. I'll use that. If I even considered for a moment what that sticky rice would have done to that false bottom of the 10.5, I would have never done that and probably saved myself not only a ton of work, but some time. But bizarrely enough, I was able to sparge. I left that part out. Do I have? Yeah, I do. Okay. So Now I'm back to my notes and what I have footage. So here's the basket draining. I was able to sparge. Took a little manpower to kind of loosen up everything to get all the sparge water through. But I was able to release all the wort. And by the time I was done sparging, somehow in all this, I still hit my pre-boil gravity numbers. So I can never duplicate this beer again because I will never want to. So I'm just going to have to take that as one of the few wins in today's fiasco. And honestly, with that, I can say that's the last thing that went wrong this day. Not that that wasn't enough, but after this, the boil was fine. I was kind of afraid with all that glutinous rice in there, I might have that problem where it kind of settles to the bottom of the foundry and you get that E3 error. Never happened. I did kind of give it a couple stirs right off the bat once we got at the boiling temperature to make sure that wouldn't happen, but it never seemed to come close, and I never really felt anything kind of sticking on the bottom. So I kind of did that less and less as the boil went on. And I was able to actually get through the rest of the day pretty uneventful. I split this wort between 3 1-gallon fermenters, 2 that are going to be pitched, some of that Imperial Global L30 yeast starter that I showed you earlier, and the other I'm going to pitch the Yeast 4134 sake yeast strain, just to really see what that does. I don't know what it's going to do, and I had the opportunity to buy it, and I thought this would be a interesting test bed to try that strain out on. After fermentation, I take one of the lagered beers and put that straight into the keg. I also put the second lagered beer into a keg, but I add some ginger puree and a little bit of a coffee vodka tincture that I made. This is going to be a coffee ginger Japanese rice lager, at least I hope. That's the intention. And of course, that third one, the sake fermented one, also goes in a keg. I carbonate all 3 with the Blickman Quick Carb, and after all that work, I'm pretty eager to taste each one of these and see if at least one of them was worth all that effort. I have my 3 beers, the 2 lagered, then the one with the sake yeast, and then one flavored at packaging. You just heard all about that. I'm kind of reminding myself because it's a little bit longer since that recording, but anyway, we're going to start right off with the appearance because I'm surprised by a couple of things here. First, this is the straight up lager, no flavor, and the lager yeast. And this is very clear. And I did put quite a bit of work into clearing these beers. And by that, I mean, I put a healthy dose of acylophyne in it when I kegged it. And then after carbonating it, I lagered it for quite a while. In fact, this is, of all these return videos since I've come back from my last break, this is the first beer I actually brewed. So all the other videos you've seen, and a few other beers you haven't seen yet, all the other videos you've seen have been brewed, fermented, packaged, recorded, tasted, posted while this was still lagering. So I wanted to keep this out or in the fridge and wait as long as I possibly could, and I'm glad I did because we've got a very clear beer. It is a little darker than I expected, even though it's very light. It's a very light gold. I've seen almost like bordering on clear. Straw would be the best way to describe it on the Japanese lagers I've seen from the videos I was studying and here locally. They're very much lighter than this. Now, on the other hand, well, this is another further surprise, sort of, kind of. It's a little darker. Same beer, but this has ginger puree and a coffee tincture, but the coffee tincture was only a few days old, like 3 at most. I don't think it was quite 4. And so I'm going to say 3 days old because it started to get dark, and I didn't want this to get super dark with the coffee flavor. In fact, there's more ginger in it than coffee, and that ginger is actually kind of brown, the puree. So I think this darker color, I don't know if it comes out as well side by side. I think it's coming from a little bit of both, but mostly the ginger. Now, the biggest surprise is, I don't know why, this is the sake yeast fermented beer. And here I'll go with the first one. It's considerably lighter. This is the color I expected from all the beers, actually, now that I look at it. But this is the lager. This is the lager yeast. This is the sake yeast. I don't know why. That's a lighter beer. I have no explanation whatsoever. And interestingly, this, I don't know if I can tilt it in there. This is the only one that had anything that you would even call resembling a head. It didn't quite have a head on pour, but it still has some carbonation bubbles. It's got actually a really nice tight ring around the collar. I don't know if you're able to see that or not. And a good dusting across the top. These have nothing, but they are effervescent. These other two, they don't have any kind of head, but there's an effervescence to them. So now with all that, we got a couple other things to figure out here. First, let's find out what the straight up Japanese rice lager with the lager yeast, no flavoring, tastes like. Well, smells like. I almost forgot that part. So right off the bat, I get that lager sulfury smell that a lot of people associate with beer that they don't think they like because they haven't had good beers. And a little bit of lemony zest and a little bit of pith, like a little bit of the bitterness to the aroma, like the white part of a lemon. Just a little bit, though. Most of it is just clean, that clean fermentation character. I guess there's a little bit of sweet malt behind that, but it's a clean fermentation that kind of takes over and everything else carries behind that for me. Let's get to the taste. That is insanely light. Like, it tastes, I mean, almost nothing. I'm getting a little more now. I'm getting a little bit of sweet something graininess. Might be the Pilsner malt. Might be, there's a little something on the back end on the finish that's a little, I'm not even sure what. It's like a bitter astringentness, if that's a thing. And it's not the hop bitterness. I think that's the rice. Yeah, that's all in all, overall, I got two more to get through. I'm going to try to do these quick. Not bad, not great. I will happily finish this. I've got 1 gallon of each. That comes out to about 6 bottles, a little less after pouring and shooting. So 5 bottles. This one I might keep around and get some, might take it to Brew Club and get some suggestions, but not bad, but not great. And honestly, though, considering what I went through to get this beer to this point, I really can't complain. But let me take another taste, because I'm actually surprised that Sriracha Ace isn't coming out more, because I remember when tasting it during different levels of fermentation, I was getting a really citrus tart, not a sour tart, like nothing was turning on it, but I was like, oh wow, that's going to be quite lemony, but I'm getting nothing now that this is done. Yeah, it's just, that weird aftertaste. Ooh. That's the part I don't like. It's not making me hate the beer, but it's making me not want to do this the same way again. All right, now let's get to the ginger coffee beer. And right off the bat, I get the ginger and not much else with it. It was so light, I guess it's kind of overpowering it, but it's not a very strong ginger. I didn't put that much into it. And I also put even less coffee, so I'm not getting any coffee roast notes. I can't even talk myself into getting it. Yeah, ginger. Now I'm getting a little bit of the kind of the boozy beer, the beery smell, but mostly ginger and really light too. All right. Oh, well, taste-wise, there's a lot more ginger than flavor. It's still not overpowering. In fact, I can taste the beer more. I actually think that it's opening up the beer more than without it. Yeah, it's quite pleasant, actually. No coffee. And I was afraid of that. And I also didn't use much of it. I usually don't use tinctures for coffee, as you put the coffee beans right in. For this one, I didn't want to. I don't really know why I talked myself out of that. So I tried making a tincture, and I tasted it. It tasted super chalky. I don't know if I did something wrong. It was just simply a layer of beans in a very small mason jar, and that was covered with vodka. So there's not a whole lot of ingredients in it, but I tasted it, and there's this chalkiness taste to it, and I was like, between that and the color it was turning, and I didn't want this to look like an amber ale or even a brown ale. I didn't put very much coffee in, and that doesn't surprise me. I don't get anything out of it, but I do like that ginger. Oddly enough, though, there's that weird thing on the finish, which I'm thinking is that cheap white rice I used. Now this one is the one I was probably looking most forward to, because I've never done anything with sake yeast, and I know what sake tastes like, and I like it okay. It's not something I seek out, but if I'm at a Japanese restaurant or any kind of restaurant that features sake and the table's getting it, I'll enjoy it with them. But first off, that color just is so weird. I don't understand. It's not as easy to tell out this glass is empty, but wow, that's so much later. The smell, the aroma is nothing like the others. Oh man, I don't know if I like it. I guess that's the sake yeast. It's a very, wow, earthy, boozy smell, if that's a thing. Man. Yeah, that's not. It's almost fusel, but it's not. I know it's not. That's not like the. It's actually. I take it back. It's like the fusel without the burning. Maybe it is a fusel. Maybe the alcohol in this went awry. It might be a fusel aroma. All right. Let me taste this. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't know what that is. I'll say it doesn't taste dangerous. So I'm going to taste it again. Yeah, and this is where I should have had some sake. It may just be the sake character, and I'm just not remembering it right, and it's not a compliment to this grist. I don't want to say that. I'll try it again. That's not that fusel taste, but it's not good. It's boozy-ish. Still not that hot for alcohol. I think, oh man. Yeah, this is where I underprepared. I should have had some sake ready to taste side by side. Do I have any? I don't think I have any. I'm not even going to bother to check because I don't think it's worth it. Yeah, that's not good. It's not. Oh, boy. Again, it's not dangerous bad. Like, it's not infected. I don't think it's going to make me sick. If I were to finish this, I think I'd be okay. I'm not going to because my taste buds won't be. Could this be up someone's alley? Maybe. This one was just a bad idea. Which is a shame because I think all in all, it's the closest to what I wanted it to look like. It's got, I can look at that and I can rouse a head on it. The color is what I wanted. The aroma is not. And celery. Oh my God. I just got a giant whip of like the strongest celery. Like if you took a pound of celery seeds and smashed them all at once, that's one of the aromas on here. Oh, that's so weird. I'm going to taste it one more. Now that I know that, I'm going to taste it one more time, and that is it. No, it doesn't taste like celery. Oh, boy. Yeah, that's sake yeast in this grist. I do not recommend. This is the original. This has potential. I think doing this again I might try it again with just all flake rice like the recipe is supposed to be and see what happens. Might get rid of that weird aftertaste. Might give it a little more everything overall. And then maybe try it with jasmine rice. I think I'm not going to try this again with real rice. Flaked rice is real rice. You know what I mean. With grain rice. But I'm going to drink this to get the taste of that out of there. This made this so much better. Actually, I really like that now, but best for last. The ginger in the beer is awesome. I'm getting none of the coffee. I wanted to try ginger and coffee because I looked up online what goes with ginger because we had the ginger for something else, the puree, and I was like, I didn't want to waste it, but I didn't want to just make it one note. So I tried the coffee. I know I underdid it. I might try it again Maybe I'll do a split batch with this with just flaked rice, and then I'll put the beans in, and that way I'll kind of get the extraction I want more than what I got out of the tincture. But I will say the ginger in this, that makes all the difference in all three of these. Well, two of these. This one, you can't. I'm putting that. I don't even want to be able to reach that on camera. But between the two of these, the ginger makes a huge difference overall. Not only does it taste good, but it just really brings out more in the beer. So that was fun, though. I mean, even though, I think it's 1 out of 3. I think that's I think I'm batting 300 there with this one. But I got something, and I got some ideas, and I know never what to do again. And for brew day, I never know what to do. To definitely not do again when it comes to that rice. So I hope, even though this wasn't the most informative and certainly not the most educational video I've ever done as far as information, maybe it kind of was in a way of what not to do. I hope you at least learned those things, what not to do, and enjoyed some part of this. And it gave you an idea to try to do something unusual for yourself. Brewing with cooked rice is the first time I've ever done it. It didn't go so well, but I'm happy I did it because all in all, the experience, even though it wasn't always fun, overall, it was fun. And in the end, I found something I liked, and I'm going to finish this and enjoy it. And that is a keg of these two. That one's getting poured down the drain, and immediately after I hit stop on this recording. But this is one that I'm going to enjoy again and probably be happy to share with people. So something came out of it. And yeah, I think you probably did see me just slop some on the table here, but it is what it is. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll be back with another video really soon. So until then, I'll see you in the next episode.